Pay no attention to the beads of sweat on my forehead. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to haul some books for you. These are all books that I picked up throughout the month of August. There are a couple of pre-orders in here, of course, Book of the Month, and Book Outlet had a sale going on. Could have even been at the very tail end of July after I'd already filmed my July book haul, but it was the Scratch and Dent sale. So I've got a few titles that I purchased at that point to show you today. First, as always, let's go ahead and lead off with my Book of the Month selections. I picked The Whisper Man by Alex North and The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. The reason for this, I actually already read and reviewed The Whisper Man, which I will leave that video linked down below or in the cards. I got an ARC of that book, but I wasn't sure when the Book of the Month selections were announced if my ARC was going to be an ebook or a physical copy. So I went ahead and ordered the Book of the Month copy, which, I don't know, I had a good feeling about the book, so it didn't seem like too much of a risk. So I am glad to have this finished hardcover version of the book. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars. So check out that review if you're at all interested in The Whisper Man, about a couple of crimes that take place that are identical to some from 20 years prior, involving a man who whispers at the windows of small children. So creepy. And then, of course, The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. Tons of stuff being said about this. I'm not even sure I need to talk about it, but people have a lot of great things to say about it. It's the story of a woman who takes a position as a nanny in this highly unusual set of circumstances in a smart house, and she finds herself on trial for the murder of a child. And I don't know a lot more than that, to be perfectly honest, other than the great things everybody keeps saying about it. And I kind of don't want to know more than that. This is probably the 4th Ruth Ware book that I've purchased. The only one that I've read so far is In a Dark, Dark Wood. And that one was okay, but I had some problems with it, especially the way that it was marketed to me. And so I've been hesitant. Like, there's something that draws me to Ruth Ware, otherwise I wouldn't keep buying the books. Other people's high opinions of her writing is contributing to that, but I haven't read any others. This one, people are loving a lot, so that sounds promising. There were 3 books in the month of August that I pre-ordered that were released. The first is The Runaway by Holly Overton. This is the story of a police officer or detective who agrees to foster a runaway girl. It all has to do with that girl's background and her troubling past, and then pulling the detective into that, and yet the detective wants to solve her problems, etc., etc. So I'll talk more about this in my recent reads video, but I had one previous experience with Holly Overton. I read The Walls, and this past month, I read Baby Doll by Holly Overton. So I did pre-order this mostly because it was kind of like a good deal and sounded kind of interesting, but I wasn't dying to read it because I'm not a die-hard Holly Overton fan, or I wasn't. Yeah, I'm a little bit more interested in this book now. Future me is more interested in Holly Overton than past me was, and past me is the one who actually pre-ordered this, so it's going well. I also pre-ordered Someone We Know by Sherry Lapina. Again, I do have on my shelves other Sherry Lapina books, at least one that The Couple Next Door. I don't know. The Couple Next Door, at least, was a Book of the Month book. I definitely have that. Feels like I have another one, something about a stranger. You guys are probably rolling your eyes because these are super well-known books across booktube, and yet I'm talking about them like an idiot. But anyway, someone we know. I pre-ordered it. It's about a neighborhood teenager who's breaking into the homes in the neighborhood and like hacking their computers and finding out all of their personal information. Have not heard great things. Like, since pre-ordering it, I have not heard great things about this book, but I own it now. So this probably won't be the first Sherry Lapina I pick up, because I'm afraid it's going to turn me off from the author, where the other books have been talked about highly. So I also really randomly pre-ordered The Murder List by Hank Phillippi Ryan, and feel kind of like I've missed something that might have been obvious. Hank Phillippi Ryan apparently has a huge library to her credit of crime thrillers, and yet I had not ever heard of this author. Come to find out, she is an Emmy-nominated and winning television journalist. Is that what I'm... An investigative reporter. Also winner of 5 Agatha Awards, the Anthony McCavity, Daphne du Maurier, and Mary Higgins Clark Awards. Like, have I been sleeping? I haven't heard anybody talk about this author. Granted, I can't watch a lot of booktube these days. I'm super busy. My life is super chaotic. This book in particular is about a law student who thinks she's great, thinks her career path is great, thinks her marriage is great. Yet the tagline is, the problem is she's wrong. So a pretty vague synopsis of this book, which is fine. Blurbed, I think the blurbs were part of the reason that I was so intrigued by it. AJ Finn, Riley Sager, Jessica Strouser, B.A. Paris says it's her best yet. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Since pre-ordering this, I have gone back and looked, and I'm not sure that I'm super interested in all of her material. But this one sounded interesting to me, and it's introducing me to a new author, so I'm looking forward to reading it. Now on to the other gems that I picked up throughout the month of August. I did end up buying a new copy of Every Heart a Doorway. I was able to find a lot of the Wayward Children's series books on Book Outlet for super great prices. Of course, not the first one. So I bit the bullet and went ahead and bought the first one at regular price from Amazon just so I could get started. I picked up Under the Banner of Heaven by Jon Krakauer. I'm trying to break into Jon Krakauer. Obviously, Jon Krakauer's reputation, I mean, I don't have to get into that, but that is the reason that I am... that is the biggest reason that I'm attracted to his work at this point in my life. This particular book is the story of, well, it literally says a story of violent faith, about one of the most fascinating concepts to me, which is violence committed in the name of someone's faith, which ultimately doesn't condone violence. Like, how do you justify killing in the name of God, who very clearly stated, "Thou shalt not kill"? Like, that kind of thing. It specifically deals with 2 brothers who killed a young woman and her infant daughter. They claim that they had received a commandment by God to do so, and Jon Krakauer is telling that story. This happened in the 80s, apparently. I was 4 when that happened. The rest of these books, I believe I picked up from Book Outlet. And like I said, during their scratch and dent sale, I picked up a physical copy of Wrecked by J.B. Salisbury. I read this and reviewed this for BookTube as an ARC, and so I just picked it up. I liked it. It wasn't phenomenal, but I thought it might be worth rereading, which I don't have time to read books for the first time. How will I reread them? It's a good question. But I have a copy now in case I want to do that. As I've been doing recently, I did pick up 2 more Christopher Moore titles. The funny author. First is A Dirty Job, and the second is Island of the Sequined Love Nun. Christopher Moore writes satirical books. Some of them are actually satirical horror, but in any case, he's always writing about things that are usually taboo to talk about with humor. So things that we wouldn't necessarily think are okay to make fun of, Christopher Moore goes ahead and makes fun. I'm most excited for A Dirty Job. This is about a really normal guy who falls in love and has a baby, and then finds out he's been recruited to be death. Island of the Sequined Love Nun. I'm not even sure I could explain what this book is about. It is as outrageous as the title suggests. About a pilot who loses his job when he crashes his employer's plane, and so he takes a position piloting really shady people. And there's talking animals in it. I mean, it's a pretty out there kind of book. I purchased Anatomy of a Scandal by Sarah Vaughan, which after I purchased it, I started having anxiety attacks because I thought that maybe I'd already purchased it at a different point in time, but I can't find any evidence that I did, so I think we might be okay. This is about a woman who's happy in her life and in her marriage and as a mother, and then her husband comes home and confesses something that he's done. All it says is it's an indiscretion, and basically his confession is being made because there's a lot of stuff following behind it. He's basically trying to get in there and admit this before the rest of the proverbial crap hits the fan. So it's this huge giant scandal that they're now embroiled in, and I don't know how this domestic thriller is going to turn out, but I really hope that maybe, like, here I go making assumptions about books, but I really hope that, like, she has even worse secrets than her husband. She's done even worse things. Also during the Scratch and Dent sale, I think, is Girls on Fire by Robin Wasserman. This is a very critically acclaimed book. It's popular on BookTube. It's about a female friendship, I believe at the high school level, where one girl who appears very impressionable is taken in by a girl who maybe isn't the best influence. It says 3 girls went into the woods, 2 came out. It sounds like a joke or a riddle, but it was only whatever after be the rest of our life. I picked up The Party by Robin Harding. Robin Harding has gotten some attention lately for her recent release called The Arrangement. This book, though, is not that recent release. This one is actually about a Sweet 16 birthday party when something goes horribly wrong. There's some sort of accident, and it implies that the 16-year-old's parents are then subjected to some pretty awful things in it sounds like, again, all speculation, like something horrible happens to one person while at the home of this couple, and this couple really is not treated very well afterward. I also picked up the 20th anniversary edition of Speak. This is about a girl in high school who has already experienced one trauma and then is subjected to another, and uses art to not only heal herself but to, you know, take a stand and make a statement about these things happening. This particular copy or edition has a special introduction. It has a special afterword by Jason Reynolds, author of Long Way Down. Also something that I read and talked about this year. Jason Reynolds is proving to me to be a pretty important voice for current issues affecting youth today. And he writes an afterword. It reads like a letter. It says, "Dear young brother," and it's signed your older brother, Jason Reynolds. It's a letter about consent. It's a letter about violating a person and ignoring their right to consent. So, pretty important book. Also, I'm raising little men now, and I'm not going to lie to you, like, some of the issues, the hot button issues these days, and things that we're really dealing with and trying to deconstruct and rebuild as a society, both, you know, the treatment of people of color, the treatment of women, all of those things. I'm trying to raise my little men with, I want to raise them to be little men, responsible little men. I don't know how to do that. I'm not a man. I have no idea how to do that. I haven't even formulated a plan. I haven't even, you know. So it's things like Speak, Long Way Down, some of the nonfiction books that I've picked up and hauled and talked about recently. Like, all of these things, I guess it all comes back to having them as resources and consuming them so that I may be better and that I may understand better and that I can raise better versions of humans than the generations before us. So, anyways, blah. I also picked up all my book hauls turned depressing at some point, but I also picked up Homicide, A Year on the Killing Streets by David Simon. This is literally about a guy who hung out with the homicide unit of Baltimore, Maryland. And there's been a lot going on and said recently about Baltimore, Maryland. I don't judge because I'm from Flint, and we're not exactly, the news about Flint's never exactly positive. So this isn't brand new. I mean, this is like 15 years old. It's actually the inspiration for the television show Homicide. And again, it's just an insightful reference for me. It's a nonfiction. Just because we really want to keep this as a bummer, I picked up Columbine. This is a newer addition to an older book. This is by Dave Cullen. Obviously, it's all about the mass shooting at Columbine High School in Colorado, which took place in 1999. It was originally written 10 years after the incident, and then it was updated to this version, claiming to have over 30 pages of new material. But it includes, you know, some pretty intimate details, interviews, and evidence involved with that incident. Again, just a fascination of mine, yes, but also something that I don't ever want to forget. Like, as I'm raising my sons, I want to have these things. I don't know. I just want to be a better human, and I want to raise better humans. Lastly, I picked up 2 anthologies because I'm planning to do something with anthologies. The first is Press Start to Play. This is an anthology that includes stories by Andy Weir, Shauna McGuire, Holly Black. It's all about video games and gaming. Those are my people. Maybe not anymore, but at one point those were my people. So I think that this will be a really interesting collection for me personally. I've never heard anything about it. The other that I picked up is Loosed Upon the World. This is an anthology of climate fiction, stories by Margaret Atwood. Again, Shauna McGuire, all about the effects of climate change. Some of these stories are speculative science fiction stories about the future we may be barreling towards. So interesting, relevant, and hopefully it's not a big downer. Hopefully it's like of people, hopefully it's stories about, you know, people fighting and persevering and succeeding, and hopefully it's not just like, oh, we're all gonna die. We'll see. So that's it. Those are the books that I picked up in August. I might have accidentally even hauled a couple that I had already hauled in July. I feel like this is a really weird book haul for some reason, but I can't identify where that feeling is coming from. I don't know. It just feels really weird. But tell me what you think. If you've read any of them, I'm dying to know your opinion. If you haven't heard of any of them, or if you have questions, all that yummy goodness, leave those down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon.